Da 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 da.
J
W presents Myosin Actin, a love story.
For your information, this is an educational video about how muscle cells contract. Once upon a time, there was a kingdom named Myocardium Land. For your information, myo means muscle, and cardium means heart. Piece the two together, and it stands for heart muscle. Now, let's take a closer look at the people who live in Myocardium Land.
Hey, I'm Myosin, and I'm totally in love with Actin.
Hello, my name is Actin, and I have a crush on Myosin. He's so hot.
Hi, I'm Troponin, Actin's dad, and my baby girl is not allowed to date until she is married.
Hey, Myosin here. I'm Actin's older brother, and she can be, annoying and everything, but at the end of the day, she is my sister.
Hello everyone, I'm Calcium, Actin's mother. I try to be reasonable because I just want what's best for her. Now, let's get into the love story.
Yes.
Act 1. The Obstacle. One day, Myosin was daydreaming about Actin and trying to figure out how he will get to hold her hand. But he remembers that she has an overprotective dad and brother. So, he decides to call Actin's mom to tell her about his plans for the night. Let's pause and take a look at what's really happening inside a cardiac myocyte. The cell starts at rest and is currently in a stage called a blocked state. In this stage, troponin physically blocks actin from binding the head of myosin. There is no movement happening during the blocked state. Now let's get back to the story. Act 2. The discussion. Father Troponin has always been extremely against the idea of his daughter dating. He, quite literally, stands in the way of any guy that tries to approach Actin. So, after realizing that Myosin's love for Actin is genuine, Mother Calcium decides to gently convince Father Troponin to allow Myosin to pursue Actin. After a long discussion, Father Troponin finally decides to give Myosin a chance. In the story, Father Troponin is initially against the idea of his daughter being in contact with Myosin. Referring back to the cardiac myocyte, currently, troponin is blocking actin from binding Myosin. Remember in the story when Mother Calcium puts a gentle hand on Father Troponin? Well, this is analogous to what happens in the cell in that calcium is able to physically bind troponin, causing troponin to move aside and subsequently exposing the binding area which allows the myosin head to bind to actin. Act 3. The final hurdle. Myosin is ecstatic to know that Mother Calcium managed to get Actin's dad out of the way. Finally, Myosin is allowed to be with Actin. But there's just one more thing that needs to be taken care of. See, Tropomyosin, Actin's brother, is also quite protective over his little sister. However, after Actin and Myosin hold hands, brother Tropomyosin eventually sees that Myosin is a decent guy and takes a step back, allowing them to pursue their relationship. Let's take a quick pause again to discuss what's happening here. Remember that Myosin is finally able to be with Actin, but their bond isn't very strong because of brother Tropomyosin. In the cardiac myocyte, this is called the closed state, where actin and myosin are bound together, but because tropomyosin isn't fully pushed out of the way, their bond is weak. However, this configuration becomes altered when the cell transitions to the strong state. The strong state occurs when tropomyosin is eventually pushed out of the way, allowing myosin and actin to bind at the maximum strength. This is relatable to the part of the scene where tropomyosin moves out of the way to allow the two lovers to hold hands for a stronger bond. Act 4. The sacrifice for something phenomenal. With the family's full support, Myosin couldn't be any happier. In fact, he's really serious about his relationship with Actin. Because of this, he decides to sacrifice one of his valuables, ATP, to make Actin happy. After he sacrifices his ATP, he takes the relationship to the next level and gives Actin a big, warm hug. And this, my friends, is quite possibly the greatest love story of all time. Wait! Before we end this off, we still have to talk about what this all means in the context of a cardiac myocyte contraction. Now that myosin is fully bound with actin, a molecule called ATP needs to be broken down. ATP, which stands for adenosine triphosphate, is a molecule considered to be the energy currency of a cell. It is used for a wide variety of bodily processes, such as muscle contractions. In this case, ATP is bound to myosin. Recall in the story that myosin has to sacrifice ATP for actin in order to take their relationship to the next level. Similarly, what powers the contraction is the breakdown of ATP into an ADP molecule, adenosine diphosphate, and an inorganic phosphate molecule. After the ATP is broken down, the energy released in this reaction powers the myosin head to propel. And while it's still gripping onto actin, the actin filament is able to slide as a result of the propelling. Note that the binding of actin and myosin and the sliding of the filaments have to occur multiple times in order for a full muscle contraction to occur. As long as calcium stays bound to troponin, myosin will remain bound to actin in order to cycle through this process. As the actin filaments slide closer together, the muscle cell shortens, which results in a contraction. And there you have it! Now you'll know exactly what's going on in your muscle cells every time your heart beats or when you're lifting weights at the gym.
We hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching!